Hey everyone, Kowai Poltergeist here, and I'm very excited to announce that I'm trying something very new for my channel. What I'm planning on doing is that from now on, instead of just posting one story at a time, I'm planning on posting compilations of short stories, and having these compilations have certain themes. The theme for this video will be terrifying family stories. The three stories I have planned to read out are I'm Scared of Doors by Jjustingraham, A Consensus of Forks by Decorativegentleman, and Forged by Needles and Silence by Hyperobscura. If you preferred this video format, please let me know in the comments section. Alright, let's go and get these stories started. When I was 11 years old, my father burned to death. The memory is still vivid. The shrill scream of the smoke alarm threw me from a dead sleep onto an elevator that went from confusion to panic in 15 seconds. I could smell it. The rancid tang of burning metal and wood. Mom was an insomniac and a sleepwalker. Dad used to lock the doors around the house to make sure that she wouldn't sleepwalk into the street or try to start cooking in the middle of the night. But somehow, she would always find a way to escape the bedroom even while asleep. So he installed an automatic latch that would click as soon as the door closed. You had to reach the top of the door frame and press a button, then pull a latch from the bottom door frame to open it. Cumbersome, but effective. That night, she'd fallen asleep on the couch after Dad had come in from a graveyard shift, shit, showered, and collapsed onto bed. But apparently, her sleep state mind decided she absolutely needed to make some pasta. The stove fire woke her up in a panic, but she was too late to stop the flames from catching the curtains and igniting the wooden beams of the ceiling. Dad always practiced fire drills with us. Since I was at the front of the house, I climbed out my window, down the sloped roof, and the lattice he had nailed to the wall, so I could escape. My parents' window was on a sheer wall. He had to open the door, run across the hall to my room, and take the same exit I did before the fire collapsed the staircase. He never made it out the room. They found him in the ashes of the foundation the next day, only because his wedding ring had fused to a water pipe. In the haze of smoke, he couldn't open the fucking door. I blamed Mom, obviously. No matter what she did, however many times she apologized or begged forgiveness, nothing would bring Dad back. I left home the minute I turned 18, and Mom died when I was 28. Lung cancer, fittingly. We never reconciled. When I bought my house, I knocked down every wall and took off every single door. I hung a curtain for the bedrooms and the bathrooms and put a gate in front of the basement stairs so I wouldn't fall when drunk. Other than that, no doors. I hate doors. Just thinking of them transports me into a locked room, fighting through smoke, grasping for air before flames eat me alive. Now, hiding in the basement, listening to the hideous groans of the living dead upstairs as they creep towards the basement, where I hide with just 2 shotgun shells. Maybe one door. At least for the bathroom. Maybe I could have lived with that. My family has a long-standing tradition. A yearly barbecue where we gather and catch up. It keeps us close, even if it's just one weekend each year. And before you start wondering if we end up eating people instead of pork or brisket, stop. We do. We're not savages though. We have rules. First and foremost, blood stays off the plate. We don't eat each other. The second rule is, everyone brings 2 things, a sauce and a guest. Well, this year I'm bringing my girlfriend, Penelope. I don't want to. I usually lure in some down-and-out vagrant with the promise of a warm meal. There are appetizers before we prepare the main course, so technically, I keep my promise, and more importantly, I follow the rules. Penelope heard me discussing the barbecue with my Uncle Luke and invited herself along. Now, Luke is like a father to me. He raised me from the age of 2 after my mother died. My actual father left when I was just a grainy bean on a sonogram, but Luke stepped up. I was his burdensome exercise in family duty. Luke tells me stories sometimes about my mother, his saintly sister. She prayed for a baby boy, and you were the miracle that answered her. I feel like I prayed for a lifelong partner, and Penelope answered. She's a lawyer, clever, sweet, and she gets on well with Uncle Luke. He says the family likes her, so I figure even if she is my guest, that she'll be safe. I hope she'll be safe. At the barbecue, we sit at a long table. 9 guests, 9 potential meals. Penelope leans her head on my shoulders as Aunt Irma, our de facto matriarch, welcomes everyone. Irma doesn't much like me, says I'm snide and disrespectful. She eyes Penelope. She knows that I love her. I can see her reading it in my nervous glances. When the appetizers are done, I watch the tranquilizers pulling on the guest. But I warn Penelope of our 3rd rule. Never eat off the plate of a guest. Alright everyone, let's start with Luke's guest, Irma announces. 7 forks go up in the air. The taste of the majority speaks. Luke nods and runs a steak knife through the neck of a drowsy middle-aged man in a polo shirt. Iris guest? 6 forks and more blood. Anita, Mary, Donald, Irma, Oscar, Gwen. Me. My guest. Penelope. Now, we had a discussion about Penelope beforehand, Irma says through a mouthful of bloody cornbread. Who wants to break the news? My stomach sank. But then, Penelope speaks? I will. She returns my confusion with a blank stare. Babe, I love your family. So, I volunteered to make them a family tree. I researched at 4 different courthouses and your mother really was a saint. The adoption papers said that your birth mother died of an overdose. My birth mother? Such a thoughtful girl. Penelope's guest? 9 forks and 9 hungry grins. When I was a kid, my mom would stick needles under our fingernails and toenails. 1 for each digit. 20 of them total. Well, 18 for Charlie. She'd be careful not to penetrate the skin, but if we moved just an inch, she would ram it forcibly in there. Don't you fucking scream, she'd say, or I'll poke your eyes out next. And you'd be stupid not to listen to her. Just ask poor Charlie. Granted, she never poked out his eyes, but she did cut off a finger and a toe, and that's not nothing. Stop squealing, she snarled, spreading Charlie's fingers on the table. Take it like a fucking man. But Charlie wasn't a man. He was 5 years old, a terrified child confused by his unconditional love for this hateful woman. I wasn't like that. There was no love left in me, just a burning desire to watch her die slowly. When she was done torturing us, she'd lock the door behind her, leaving us alone in the darkness of the basement. I spent 11 years in that place. It was all we ever knew. The cold, the dark, the needles, and the pain. Where's Daddy? Charlie would ask me every night. He's gone, Charlie, I'd say. It's been years now. Charlie died in my arms when he was 7 years old. Gangrene, I think. Too many black wounds seeping with thick yellow fluid, of which would never fully heal. I dabbed them with dirty rags, but in the end I suppose I did more harm than good. I don't blame myself though. There's only one person at fault. He was weak, Iris. My mom told me one night before the needling. He wasn't like us. We're fighters. Survivors. I strangled my mom to death when I was 15. First I made sure to poke out her eyes, sticking needles in just about every inch of her body, and carved out her tongue. 11 years of unimaginable torment inflicted in just a few hours. I'm sure she's burning somewhere in hell now, liquid flesh creeping under her nails and chunky blood maggots crawling into her eyes. Still, I owe her everything. When I left the basement, I left everything I knew behind. There was no time to adapt, no time to learn. It took me a while to understand it, but she prepared me for everything. I crept over vast mountains of dead, their jagged bones digging into my feet and hands. But I didn't make a sound. I could lie still for days, crooked carrion picking at my flesh, maggots crawling in every orifice, yet I felt no need to scream. Even when the creatures tossed my body around, bones crackling, fingers breaking, separated tongues licking my flesh, I didn't even whimper. I'm not sure if there's anyone out there. Maybe I'm all alone. Maybe we're extinct. But if you find this, I'm here. I'm around, fighting, surviving. Forged by needles and silence. Alright, that concludes today's video. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to check out my channel and listen to these 3 short stories by 3 great artists. If you want to go ahead and check out their stories on Reddit, I provided the links below. Also, if you have a theme you would like me to cover for a future video, feel free to post it in the comments section. I'd love to know what type of stories you guys are interested in. Other than that, I'm Kowai Poltergeist, and thank you so much for listening.